James Lindsay, who's Conceptual James on social media and does a great job, by the way, was on the Joe Rogan show. And this is the best explanation yet on how these ideas like year zero and getting rid of the old and detaching people from the objective values of their family and God are the goal of the Marxists to create division. This is fantastic. Check this out.
From the Marxist perspective, having studied the history of Marxism to the 20th century, I'm telling you, this guy, George Lukács in Hungary, laid this plan out. Because you get these kids, like, you break down their innocence sexually, especially, what you can do is then they're going to go home and they're going to tell their parents that there's some like lithromantic, demisexual, tree self gender, some, pronouns tree self or something. And the parents are going to be like, what? And they're going to be like, Mom, you just don't understand, So that you separate the younger generation from the older generations. You get them to break away and think that they're old fogies, that they're repressive. You don't want me to be my true self, etc. The goal is actually to destabilize the kids' identity so that they're groomable. That's identity without an essence in queer theory. And then they're groomable. And you groom them into this stuff. And then they look at their parents' culture. They look at their parents themselves. They look at their parents' generation. They look at the parents' religion. And they say, that doesn't represent me. We need something completely different. So it's to just like in Mao's Cultural Revolution, and I mean that much more literally than you might suspect, it's to cut the tie between the continuity of culture up to that point, including the family, and to start a whole new culture afterwards. I mean, Pol Pot called it year zero. I guess Klaus Schwab calls it the Great Reset. But the goal is to separate the new generation from the traditions and views of the old generation. For Mao, it was to destroy the so-called four olds: old culture, old habits, old customs, and old ways of thinking.
The best explanation I've seen yet, hat tip, James Lindsay on the great Joe Rogan show. You notice what he said, a point, again, Joe and I have discussed since the basement in Severna Park. It's very simply stated this way. He gave a very intellectual, bright, but easily relatable explanation, James Lindsay. If you believe in absolute state power, which leftists do, you don't want competition. Right? You can't have absolute power if you have competition, and your power by definition is not absolute. If I'm sharing power with Joe Armacost, I don't have absolute power, right?
Right.
The government and socialists don't want competition. A source of power is the idea of a big R God-given right. In other words, I have power. I'm sovereign over my own body and my ability to speak. I have a First Amendment God-given right to speak freely. That is a source of competition for the left they don't want. They want to be able to censor your speech if it gets in the way of their power. So any source of objective truth or values is going to be a target of the left. Now do you understand their incessant focus on things like sexuality, dismantling the family? You heard the BLM leader, Patrisse Cullors, and them talking about communism and putting in their manifesto on BLM that they're war on the nuclear family. Why? Think about it, folks. Why would the nuclear family, the idea of a mom and a dad and kids and a white picket fence, right? Why would that idea be so offensive to someone? Have you ever thought about this? There's nothing inherently offensive about it. It is a source of all of our good memories because it's competition. The family passes down tradition and the idea that you're valuable and you have rights.